Hello everybody. Today I thought it would be fitting to start off with this quote from the SBS section of volume 48. In it, Oda says that the same devil fruit powers don't exist twice at the same time. How's that? Well, for more detail, you'll just have to wait for a certain professor to make his appearance in the story and explain exactly what devil fruits really are. Eventually. And so it's because of that statement that we can pretty much tell that we are getting very close to finding out the true nature of devil fruits. And I think there's something crucial in this chapter that Vegapunk says, or at least that the character who we are led to believe is Vegapunk says. And so I'm going to be using that statement to explore an aspect of the lore of the ancient past. But before that, the cover shows that the Vinsmoke siblings have in fact agreed to take Caesar Clown with them. I'm guessing they're on their way to meet up with Judge. And we see Hokage Chateau in the background, still collapsed. I just realized this is a pretty short chapter. Page-wise, it only has like about 13 pages, if you don't count the cover page, I think. It has like 2 double-page spreads though, so I guess that counts. We open up with Luffy grabbing Bonney's leg, and Bonney keeps shouting about there being a monster in the water. And so we soon find out that the monster is actually Steven Spielberg's Jaws. So it's a mechanical shark that doesn't seem to work right. So Sanji still has his observation hockey game up when it comes to females, because, I mean, he could literally hear what Bonney is saying, even though nobody else on the ship can. And so we get this really cool, intimidating panel of this giant shark beneath the surface of the water that's about to chomp down on the Sunny. And the shadowing in that panel is just phenomenal. Luffy, Bonney, and Chopper fall into the water, and Oda uses this as an opportunity to highlight another useful aspect of Jinbei being a Straw Hat, which is that he can move in the water like nobody's business. Also in this chapter, we get confirmation that Oda has heard about the bunny in a barrel theories, because just like he did in Whole Cake Island, Oda uses the rabbit to help the Straw Hats escape a perilous situation. Now the shark itself appears to be an upgraded version of the Shark Submerge built by Frankie, so to me it's kind of like Oda saying that great scientific minds think alike. And so I definitely expect the plot point of Frankie's bounty poster looking like the Sunny to be addressed this arc. Anyway, despite the intervention of Carrot's inherited will by speeding up the Sunny, the shark submarine shoots 2 torpedoes at the Sunny, and the blast is strong enough to flip it upside down. Now a little bit later, after Jinbei avoids getting hit by a blast from the same shark by diving underwater with Bonney, Luffy, and Chopper, is where things really get interesting, because the shark clearly shows this instinctual urge to try and devour the Sunny, which means that the shark cannot be a full-on robot. It cannot be 100% mechanical, otherwise it would not be showing these animalistic tendencies. And so we already know that Vegapunk is the scientist responsible for finding a way of combining Zoan devil fruits with inanimate objects, with machines, with weapons. And so that kind of seems to resonate with what the girl wearing a koala-style helmet says by the end of the chapter. We then cut to Marine Base G14, and the first thing I noticed were the balloons that we see outside there. I mean, the base is obviously there so that the Marines can keep a close eye on Vegapunk. So I guess this is where Fujitora stayed, or was stationed at, when he found out about the Seraphims. But anyway, those balloons are there, and they're pretty big, and we also see some balloons inside with the kids. And so I'm wondering if those balloons have anything to do with Balloon Terminal, or I'm also wondering if the balloons have something to do with the NL cover story. Because during that cover story, we found out that in Katakuri Island, which by the way, is the island where Vegapunk is from, in that cover story, we saw some little robots called automata, and they used these balloons to fly up to the moon. So now I'm wondering if Vegapunk and the Marines are engaged in some type of space exploration. Could it be that maybe Vegapunk is actually sending his inventions, or some of his inventions, up to the moon using these balloons? Also, could Vegapunk be responsible for the space pirates that we see during the NL cover story? We cut to a shot of Tashigi, which once again increases the Punk Hazard vibes of this upcoming arc. We see that the Punk Hazard kids are being treated with medicine. And then we also see that Oda's addiction of introducing brand new characters every single arc is alive and well. And so we get introduced to G14, punk rocker Vice Admiral Doll. And she is complaining about Helmeppo, complaining about Kobe. Now what's interesting is that Tashigi and Doll do not appear to be a part of Sword, or at least they're not confirmed members of Sword, because all we get is their titles, their positions, but we don't get the word sword in parentheses at the end as we do with the other characters that we see in the next page. And so it appears that we cut over to a completely different room, which is full of sword members, and we start off with Helmeppo. And right next to Helmeppo is another brand new character by the name of Hibari. Now Hibari in Japanese is the name for the Euro-Asian skylark, which is this bird right here. Come to find out, the name of Prince Groose is also bird related because Groose, or Grus, is also the name for the Euro-Asian crane, or the common crane. At first I thought that Groose looked a lot like Hote from Wano. Like there was definitely something about his design that made me go like, yeah, I feel like I've seen this guy before. So I did a little bit more digging, and it turns out that Mr. Prince Groose, member of Sword, was actually the Marine that tried kidnapping Lola/Chiffon during the Capone cover story when they were in Dressrosa.
Also, the brim of his cap is pretty long, right? So it kind of gives him the impression of a crane, because it looks like he's wearing a beak or something with his cap. The highest ranking official in this scene would be Dahl, because she's the vice admiral, right? And then after Dahl would come Groose, because he's the rear admiral. So rear admiral comes after vice admiral. And then the one after vice admiral, I think it's Commodore, but there are no Commodores here. So the one next in line would be Toshigi, because she's a captain. And Kobe is actually also a captain. The person next in line after that would be Hibari, because she's a commander. And then the one after that would be Helmeppo, because he's a lieutenant commander. I mean, there are other characters there, so we don't know what their rank is. And then we have exceptions like Garp, who's a vice admiral. He's been a vice admiral forever and is super strong. I mean, he retired, but you get what I'm saying. So just based off of the information that is revealed to us in this chapter, rank-wise, the ranks in this section of the chapter would go Dahl, Groose, Toshigi, Hibari, and then Helmeppo last. So that's why we see Helmeppo pleading with Groose to go to Hashinosu. And I'm guessing at one point he was also pleading with Dahl, and she said no as well. So he wants to go to Hachinosu. I'm guessing that's where Kobe is being held. And so, of course, the pun, or the name of the island, comes into play with Groose's response about if they go there, they're going to get full of lead. Also, Hashinosu, I think in Japanese, means beehive. So beehives are full of holes, and so it's the same sort of pun. Now, Helmeppo keeps calling Groose Your Highness, and it does say his name is Prince Groose, so I'm wondering, is he actually royalty? Like, does he belong to the nobles, the world nobles or something? And if that's the case, could he be a spy, maybe? Does that mean that he's, not on Sword's side necessarily, but maybe he's actually, undercover for the world government? I still think that one of the supernova, whether it's Law or Kid, might have ended up going to Hashinosu. And if that's the case, then maybe they can end up rescuing Kobe. Because Law and Kobe already know each other from the Rocky Port incident. So whatever supernova it is, if they went to Hashinosu, whether it's Law or Kid, we'll probably see them again in the main storyline once Luffy meets Blackbeard again. Another thing that's interesting about what Helmeppo says in this scene is that there are more seraphims in Egghead Island right now. So the Straw Hats are probably going to get to see a few more seraphims, a few more younger Shichibukai. We'll probably see young Doflamingo Seraphim, obviously young Kuma, and that'll be a way for Bonney to give us more exposition about her relationship with him. We'll probably get to see young Crocodile, which will probably be Oda's way of addressing the secret that Ivankov mentioned about his past. The thing about that, though, is that Oda already drew Crocodile as a kid. And the thing about that drawing is that Crocodile looks very androgynous. It's still not super 100% certain whether they were a young girl or a young boy. And so the only way I can see us getting some answers in terms of Crocodile's secret and his connection with Ivankov is if Bonney uses her aging power on the Seraphim and makes the Seraphim mature, and then maybe we can get some answers that way.
We then cut to a small cave near the shore of the island, and given that we see Bonney topless, it makes it very difficult to concentrate on anything else on that page. So getting to see Bonney drying her clothes was a surprise.
A surprise, to be sure, but a welcome one.
I was reminded of that scene where Blackbeard invites Bonney to be his girlfriend, and then she rejects him flat out, which I love because it speaks to her level of confidence. Confidence which is on full display in this page as well. Unlike the rest of Luffy's crew, Bonney actually asks Luffy about his Nika mode. And as it turns out, the Nika stuff getting mentioned at this point in the chapter is a perfect tie-in, not just to the quote that I read you in the beginning of this video, but also to the statement that is made by the end of this chapter. Also, I like how Bonnie's reaction to Jinbei being a part of Luffy's crew is similar to Kid's reaction when he learns that Jinbei is joining the Straw Hats. Bonney then reveals that the reason why she was in the water in the first place was because the giant shark ate her ship, and then we zoom out to get yet another one of Oda's famous silhouettes, except this time we can actually tell that the island that we're in, which is Egghead Island, seems to be a mixture between a giant egg and a planetarium of sorts. So this is Vegapunk Island, aka Tomorrowland, and according to Bonney, this is an island that is said to be 500 years in the future. And so that goes along perfectly with another description that we've heard about Vegapunk, which is that his scientific achievements are said to be at least 500 years ahead of the current technology. It just kind of feels like the quote at the entrance of Disneyland that says, "Here you leave today and enter the world of yesterday, tomorrow, and fantasy." After that, we are once again reminded that Bonney has business with Vegapunk because of what he ended up doing to Kuma. Now, I actually made the connection before that maybe this island being named Egghead and seeing a giant egg in the distance means that it could have a connection with the giant egg aboard the Odo Jackson. And what's interesting about that is that we never really got to see the egg hatch. Like, even after the Roger Pirates leave Laugh Tale, the egg is still there aboard the ship. And so, of course, we know that the Roger Pirates came to the conclusion that they were just too early to fulfill Joy Boy's dream. And so with that in mind, it just reminded me of that scene in Stampede where Bonney shows up with a bunch of eggs, and then she uses her devil fruit power to make the eggs hatch. So I'm wondering if there's going to be a giant egg, and maybe that's like the same type of egg that Roger needed to hatch, except maybe this time, because Luffy has Bonney, she's going to be using her power to make the egg hatch faster. So maybe the egg needs to hatch in order for the Pirate King to achieve a secret dream or something. Now, despite this week's quote-unquote reveal/cliffhanger, until we get further clarification on the matter, I still strongly believe that Vegapunk is a male. And the reason for that is because in every single previous mention of him as a character, the characters refer to Vegapunk as being a male. In fact, if you want to take Green Bull's word for it, an old male. And I know that in one of the earlier translations, there was like a note that said that the girl was actually speaking like an old man. So I'm guessing that this girl is going to turn out to be like an android or some kind of a vessel, because the real Vegapunk is still currently hiding his identity from the public. Also, we know that Sentomaru was first introduced to us as being Vegapunk's bodyguard, so I'm guessing we'll see him again soon. Because I remember when Luffy sees him post-time skip, he says, "I'm pretty sure we're going to see each other again at some point." What I really found interesting about the girl, though, was her comment about the shark's animalistic urge/instinct. That's something that I really want to get into. So here we go. Okay, so the first thing we need to establish is something that Oda said in Road to Laugh Tale Volume 4 in his sketch notes. So I'm just going to read you what he wrote down on the notes. It says, "Zoan awakenings, unlike Paramecia awakenings, carry a risk. The innate nature of their respective animals consumes the Zoan user." And then it says that the Impel Down guards already show the drawbacks, which is interesting because one of the things I notice about the Impel Down guards is that they have the snot, the booger falling down their nose, which is kind of like the same thing that we see with Lasso, the gun dog. And so this is why I've read people say that the Impel Down guards might have been like forced awakenings that Vegapunk created. Anyway, the point here is that if you're not careful with Zoan awakenings, the will of the animal, the innate will of the animal will overpower the will of the user, which I'm pretty sure is the reason for why you can give an inanimate object a Zoan devil fruit. Because as we found out from the Gorosei, Zoan devil fruits have a will of their own. It's also why when Luffy awakens the Nika Nika no Mi, he starts laughing like a maniac and acting like Joy Boy instead of Luffy. To the point where Kaido even has to ask Luffy, "Who are you?" And Luffy has to sober up and say, "I'm Monkey D. Luffy and I'm going to be king of the pirates." Now, when the Nika Nika no Mi color scheme was first revealed, we learned that officially the form had white hair and red eyes, which is super interesting because King also has white hair and red eyes. Okay, so Lunarian connection right there. Now we can actually keep this going because Zulong form has white hair and red eyes as well. And if you think about it, Zulong form is very similar to a Zoan Devil Fruit Awakening. Your strength and durability gets boosted, but it also has a drawback, which is that if you can't control the form, you end up giving into your primal animalistic instincts, and you can end up attacking friend and foe alike. It's very similar to Chopper's monster point, before he could control it. The way Jinbei describes Sulong form is that when a mink stares into the full moon, it brings back their memories that lurk deep within their subconscious. And so that description reminds me a lot of the lyrics from Bing Sake that say, "Wave goodbye, but don't you cry, our memories remain. Our days are but a passing dream, everlasting though they seem. Beneath the moon we'll meet again, the wind's our lullaby." A similar effect to Sulong form and to a Zoan Devil Fruit Awakening is produced by the energy steroid that we saw in Fishman Island. These pills were inside the Tamate Bako box and were considered a national legendary treasure. And so again, just like with Nika and the Sulong form, we see that Hody Jones, who ends up taking a lot of these pills, gets the red eyes and the white hair, in addition to the stat boost and strength multiplier. And one of the side effects of the pill is the same as the Zoan Awakening, which is that the user's mental state can grow increasingly unstable and give in to a blind rage. But then of course, the biggest side effect of the pill is that it ages you. Hody Jones and his crew, they became old men, which by the way is the same side effect that we saw Luffy have momentarily after he used Gear 5. Now nobody knows where the Tamate Bako box that contained the pills came from, but since we know that Joy Boy / Nika had a connection with the mermaid princess of the past, I'm willing to bet that the pills were a gift from Nika / Joy Boy to the mermaid princess so that she could use them at some point to protect herself and her people. And so if we go along with the idea that Lunarians, people of the moon, moonfolk, were the people who created the devil fruits, and Joy Boy / Nika was a Lunarian, right? The reason for why he had to give pills to the mermaid princess is because he couldn't give her devil fruits, because if the mermaid princess were to eat a devil fruit, or if the fishmen were to eat devil fruits, they would lose their ability to swim. So instead, he gave them these special pills that made them stronger and essentially have the same effect as the Zoan Awakening.
Now this relationship or this connection between the animals in the series and the moon is also present when it comes to Tama's ability, right? Otama said that her power only lasts a month. And the reason for that is because her ability is tied to the moon cycle, right? Every full moon, the power goes away, or she has no control over these animals anymore. I also thought the color scheme for the mountain god that we see in Wano was also interesting because it kind of fits the mold. It's interesting that it's referred to as the mountain god, right? Because mountain god, sun god, the Nika color scheme, the boar's color scheme, I'm just making these connections. And then of course, the way that the boar ends up surviving by getting stitched back up again is pretty ridiculous. And so we know that the Nika Nika no Mi is said to be the most ridiculous power in the world. Finally, this whole thing about the moon having some kind of influence over the animals of the One Piece world, or the moon having some connection with the animals, is also tied to Strong World. And we know that Strong World was a film that Oda was very heavily involved in. And so in that movie, we get to see these animals that are sort of evolved and mutated, and they're very strong, really ferocious, right? Because Shiki wants to use them to destroy the East Blue. And the reason these animals are so vicious and so ferocious is because they've been given a drug, and the drug is called SIQ. And the SIQ comes from a flower called IQ. So this is the IQ plant. It's what it looks like. So I'm going to read you its description. This is from the One Piece wiki. It says, IQ is a rare species of flower only known in the flying archipelago of Meriville, which is where Shiki lives in Strong World. Its presence makes the animals develop their brains and evolve depending on their environment. So not only does this bring to mind the animals that we saw back in Long Ring Longland, because the reason behind them stretching this way is because they're super free, or they feel free, but the quote also brings to mind Luffy's fighting style and awakening, and how adaptable and flexible it can be, right? To the point of it being ridiculous. Now, the ultimate connection to the moon is that you actually need moonlight in order to grow the IQ plant. So the power of the plant comes from the moon. You could also make the connection to Kuro in Syrup Village arc, because we know that Kuro is very intelligent. He's supposed to have the second highest IQ in the East Blue. The wiki says that he's only behind the IQ of Ben Beckman, but Ben Beckman is not from the East Blue, he's from the North Blue. So I thought that was interesting. And then obviously there's that connection of Kuro being affected by the moon as well, and being vicious. Although in his case it's the crescent moon instead of the full moon. But anyway, the name of the flower being IQ, and obviously meaning intelligence quotient, and Ben Beckman and Kuro having really high IQs. There's the connection there, especially when you consider the symbolism and the tie-ins to Ben's character, or Ben Beckman's character, to the moon as well. One last thing when it comes to Strong World. So in the movie, there are these people that have wings, or you can see like they have feathers, under their arms. And we don't really get an explanation as to why that is. Like one of the girls says that it's probably because they want to become birds to escape where they're living, because Shiki has them trapped because they're so high up and stuff. And so by the end of the movie, we actually get to see them use their wings to fly away. So freedom, right? And again, the movie doesn't actually really go into too much detail as to why they have feathers, why they have wings. But I'm willing to bet it's probably because of the IQ, like the exposure to the IQ, which feeds off of moon energy. And so it's pretty obvious that the moon has become this symbol of evolution and freedom in the series, which is interesting because it was also very strongly believed that the ancient kingdom was also very advanced for its time, for its age. And so Vegapunk, at the very least, knows about Lunarians because he's building the Seraphims, right? So I think it'd be interesting if he turns out to be a Lunarian himself. Like maybe the government told Vegapunk, yeah, we're not going to kill you, but you'll work for us. And you're a Lunarian, so make sure that you conceal your appearance, just like King was doing, right? So nobody gets to see you, and then also you'll work for us. Now, in the beginning of the chapter, Zoro says something interesting about the shark, which is that it's too big, right? And so that kind of leads us to Vegapunk experimenting with giantification and stuff like that, which I thought was interesting. In addition to Zoan devil fruits and sort of putting Zoan devil fruits into stuff. Now, we actually haven't seen a whole lot of Zoan devil fruits that are based off of animals that can be in the water. I mean, the axolot that we saw back in Punk Hazard was one, but that's pretty much it. So after we have Frankie and Usopp sort of fanboying over the giant robot, I think it's interesting because Usopp loves giants, right? Frankie loves robots. Well, Usopp loves robots too, but I guess it's kind of funny because it's a giant robot. By the way, is Caribou inside or outside of the barrel in that panel? He looks unconscious either way. And so after that, Lady Vegapunk says, no good. Another failure. Blast it. Why isn't it possible to control the urges of living creatures? And so this brings up the question of, is the shark actually a Zoan devil fruit shark combined with a machine? Because we know that Vegapunk has done this in the past. He's been able to pull off that combination. But it's a shark, and it's swimming. So if the shark is actually a Zoan devil fruit user, or a devil fruit, does that mean that Vegapunk has found a way around the devil fruit weakness of them sinking? I mean, I'm pretty sure he could have used some shark DNA, just like he used some DNA from the Shichibukai to create the Seraphim. So maybe it's just like the standard shark DNA that he used on this one. But regardless, we're getting really close to finding out more about devil fruits. Specifically, I think Zoan devil fruits. And the pacing ever since we left Wano has been just phenomenal. I mean, there's still a bunch of mystery boxes here, but nothing has dragged. Also, one last thing. In the panel where we get to see Egghead, right, and Bonney reveals the name of the island to the reader, the clouds around the silhouette have the spiral, have the swirl on them that reminds me a lot of devil fruits. Kind of reminds me of Smoker's devil fruit, actually. And so I thought to myself, are those clouds going to eventually turn into something, maybe? And so there's kind of a verse in Being Sake that says, "The birds sing as they draw circles in the sky." In the English version, the lyric is a little bit different. Funimation has it as, "The birds they sing of cheerful things in circles passing by." So it kind of has like the same feel to it. But the bottom line is that it really gets me to think is there something about that lyric, the circles in the sky, and the origin of devil fruits. And I just realized that the Tamate Bako box seems to have the same swirl cloud pattern on it as well. Thank you for watching, guys. I thought the chapter, as an intro chapter to this brand new arc, was pretty solid, was pretty good. Let me know your thoughts about it down below in the comments section. Thanks again for all of your support. Take care. I hope you have a great week, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.